Golden State with mates post-game live after the Warriors suffer a 131 defeat to the Portland Trail Blazers at Moda Center on Sunday night. I want to be frustrated and angry. I do, but I don't. I'm going to admit I don't have the energy for it. Obviously, the last 24 hours or so have been by far the worst 24-hour period in Australian history from the time I've been alive since 1997. I was born about 10 months after the Port Arthur massacre, which happened in my home state about 2 hours from where I'm living right now. And obviously that's mostly remembered for, I suppose, the gun reform that came in as a result of that. But obviously the events of the last 24 hours have been, the absolute worst that we've seen in Australia since I've been alive. So getting frustrated and angry at a basketball game kind of pales in comparison to some of the sadness and anger that myself and other Australians have been going through since watching it all unfold on the news last night, Australian time. So we're here still to talk about basketball, so I'll get into that. This was very disappointing. I was hoping some joy would come from this game after what I and other Australians have gone through in the last 24 hours. But I suppose to a degree, I got that. Steph Curry, 12 threes, 48 points. It's always a joy to be able to watch Steph do his thing. And even at nearly 38 years old, for him to be capable of doing this is absolutely extraordinary. But unfortunately, it just goes again to show that the Warriors need to do more to prioritize him because they are wasting some unbelievable Steph Curry performances. This is now, 87 points that he's scored over the last two games since his return from that quad injury. And the Warriors have lost both games, firstly to a Minnesota team who are minus Anthony Edwards. How you lose that game, just really, really disappointing. And then obviously to lose this one to a Portland team who without a couple of guys as well. The Warriors pretty much fully healthy outside of Al Horford. Gary Payton II was a late scratch, but I'm not really counting that, to be honest. So to have Steph deliver like he has in his first two games back, and then to still come up short again in two really, really winnable games. I was pretty optimistic after those two wins against Cleveland and Chicago because the Warriors' schedule for the next month and a bit is fairly comfortable, really, fairly easy, and they really should be taking advantage of this. And they've started off in the worst way possible, and it's just really, it's unfair on Steph. It's unfair on us as fans to a degree as well to be able to watch the blistering nature of Steph Curry and the exciting nature of Steph Curry, but still walk away with a kind of disappointing and hollow feeling because it hasn't led to a victory. And I mean, we can look back and say, well, 4 championships in the last decade or 11 years or whatever, you can't really complain, and that's fair enough. But, we're in the moment, and this is what it is. Unfortunately, the Warriors need to be better. I think, yes, there's some internal improvement to be made. The defense in this game was absolutely shocking, but particularly from an offensive standpoint, this is the second game in a row where no other Warrior, I think, has scored more than 16 points in the game. So from an offensive standpoint, they just need to get better, more productive offensive players. It's as simple as that. Like, they need another guy because Jimmy Butler, as good as he has been for the Warriors, isn't really providing that right now. A really inefficient game from him, 3 of 11 from the floor. Still got to the line and went 10 of 11, had 16 points, but just not impacting the game in a way you would have liked over the last couple of outings here against the Timberwolves and now the Trailblazers. I'm going to get into your comments. Empire says this loss is on Dre, Kerr, and Jimmy. Draymond had one of the really most interesting games because I tweeted out after the first 4 minutes he had 2 really awful turnovers, and then he fouled Denny on a corner 3-point attempt. It's like, Dre, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? We've got to be better than this. We can't, the Warriors no longer are supremely talented enough where they can afford mistakes. Like, they're going to be locked in for the entire game, right? And when they're locked in, they can actually be really good. But they just have so many self-inflicted mistakes that are just really infuriating. And those 3 from Draymond early on, I was like, come on, like, seriously. And then the rest of the first half was actually from Draymond was excellent. He had 14 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists in the first half, took advantage of Portland playing off him on a number of occasions. And then the second half, he finishes with 8 turnovers. 8? Seriously. And I've always said about Draymond, look, I love Draymond. And people on social media who take my criticism of Draymond as a thing that, I don't like him and I want him off the team or whatever else. No, that's not the case. I'm just responding to what I'm seeing. And unfortunately, Draymond's lack of offensive scoring and shooting and whatever else, that is fine so long as he's the leader of an elite defense and so long as he's bringing the playmaking stuff without turning the ball over willy-nilly. And in this game, sure, 14.6 rebounds, 4 assists in the first half, that's fine. But to finish with 8 turnovers and then to be the leader of a defense that gives up 136 points to a team that coming into this game ranked 21st in offense and who ranked 30th in three-point shooting. And I'm not putting it all on Draymond, but if he's not going to be able to impact the game defensively, then it's very hard to make up for that offensively if he's also going to turn the ball over 8 times. I don't know. It's tough. It's just a weird Draymond Green game. And I think it's more so the 8 turnovers. I don't know. I'm sick of, I'm sure Steve Kerr's sick of talking about it as well. We know it's a thing that's happened for years and years and years. It's more so the defense, which has become pretty good in recent games. But they just can't seem to put it together. They can't seem to put a two-way performance together. Either the defense is really good and they don't have enough offensively, or the offense is really good, and that's usually because Steph's going off like he did this game, and the defense isn't good enough. It's just disappointing. Thandaka, Dre, 8 turnovers, really. Another good game for Steph, and we end up losing. Why do we let Dre handle the ball in 2025? Empire, just trade Curry to a different team. No trade can help this team. I disagree. There's a guy called Giannis Antetokounmpo who I think would probably help a little bit. And I think, I don't know, it's probably some good news in terms of a potential Giannis trade today with the fact the Bucks somehow lost by 45 to Brooklyn, which is just extraordinary. And then reports as well from Mark Stein that the Thunder, the Rockets, and the Spurs all seemingly aren't interested in Giannis. So the Warriors going to be around the mix, I suppose, with New York and Miami and maybe a couple other teams in a potential Giannis trade. Obviously, he's going to have a fair bit of say in where he ends up. But the Warriors, could be in the mix there. And he's obviously going to make a huge difference. We also know that if the Giannis thing doesn't happen, then they've got some interest in Trey Murphy III as well, which he would make, obviously, a fairly significant difference as well. You would imagine, at least you'd hope so, given they'd probably have to give up 2, 3, maybe 4 first-round picks, depending on, obviously, what the deal kind of looks like. FTW Clan, our big 3 combining for 14 turnovers is sad. Curry dropping 40 a night just to lose is sad. Absolutely. And another double-digit fourth-quarter lead completely choked away. Yep. Yeah, this one, you have a 10-point lead. Steph's completely going off. And I thought Portland did a really good job and the Warriors did a bad job, it must be said. There's probably a couple of times there where third quarter and then that fourth quarter where, the Warriors get out to a 10-point lead where it's like, okay, if you just get a stop or 2 in the next minute and, you can build the lead up to 12, 14, 15, then Portland will probably throw it in. Still a relatively young team. They'll probably lay down and be like, all right, that's enough for tonight. It's a long season. We're probably not coming back from this with Steph in this kind of form. But every time Steph threatened to take the game away, the Warriors just couldn't come up with stops on the other end of the floor. And then they have that 10-point lead and, Jeremy Grant goes bang, bang, couple of threes. All of a sudden, a minute and a half later, it's like a 2-point game. And it's like, can we just have nice things for a game, please, or 5 minutes? Steph was on fire, and it just always felt like Portland was still there because the Warriors were unable to get stops defensively. Empire says fire Kerr and either trade Buddy Pods, JK Moody, GP2, Draymond, and Jimmy, or trade Curry. just anyone or everyone essentially on the team. This Warriors team is sorry. Empire says this team is just as bad as the Santa Cruz Warriors. They are probably worse. No, Santa Cruz are now 1-12 on the season. So this Warrior team is a little bit better by the NBA standards compared to Santa Cruz, who lost again yesterday to the Clippers. Followed a bit of that with Malevi Leon's, I think that I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, making his debut, had 19 points. LJ Cryer seems to be playing pretty well down there as well. So they're about the only two, and everyone else kind of stinks. So it's just that's Santa Cruz for you. Not following along too closely. But anyway, Robbie says, I think Jimmy is a third scoring option in 2025. I want to get MPJ, who has become a true shot creator and sharpshooter with size, then get Herb Jones to get a true point of attack. Be difficult to get both of those guys unless you're giving up Draymond in the trade. I'd take Trey Murphy instead of MPJ, but he'll probably be hard to get with his great contract. Also, MPJ has playoff experience. Fair. Vaughn says, I don't think Jimmy Butler is the second option we were hoping for. 50+ million for averaging 17 points a night is nuts. This is the thing, and I said it yesterday after the loss against the Timberwolves, is Jimmy can have the exact same game with the exact same numbers, and how we determine his impact and his output is really essentially comes down to whether the Warriors can win or lose, and whether the Warriors win or lose. And that's, you can say that about a lot of players, but it's specifically true for Jimmy. And as a star player, you probably don't really want that. Like, you want him to be consistently great, no matter. Like, you look at Steph in this game, and it's like Steph was great. Okay, the Warriors lost. Steph was great. Now, would Steph be frustrated with the fact he missed that layup with 30 seconds to go that would have put him back in front? Yes. Then he turned the ball over the next possession. That's frustrating. He'd be annoyed with himself for that, but you can't blame Steph Curry for this loss. Jimmy, you don't want the perception of your star to change necessarily on whether you win or lose. And I know that's, that can happen with a lot of players, but I don't know. It just feels like Jimmy needs to be more consistently impactful than what he's been over the last couple of games. Too much deferring. How much of it can be on Steve and not getting him involved enough offensively? Potentially so, yes. If you're a second scoring option and you're getting paid more than $50+ million a year, you kind of expect more than 11 field goal attempts a game, which is what Jimmy's doing, right? And this is why I think a guy like Trey Murphy III, or even if they can work out a Giannis trade without giving up Jimmy, which is theoretically possible, like if you do that, then suddenly Jimmy becomes the third guy, and you can kind of be okay with 16, 17, 18, 19 points a night, somewhere less than 20. So long as he's still doing it efficiently, he's still giving you some kind of free throw shooting stuff, the rebounding, the playmaking, all this kind of stuff is fine. Again, if you have that second guy who can take over and average 22 to 25 points. Like, I'll go back to it. The fact the Warriors have two guys averaging more than 12.5 points on this team is a flat out disgrace in 2025. Like, there is that much talent in the league. To build a roster where you are that much without scoring potency is a flat out disgrace. It must be said. Simple as that. Sorry, flicking back through your comments. Thanex says, Kerr on the podium, I have to get Jimmy Moore involved. Is he joking? Where do we even go from here? The funny thing, because I just watched Steve's press conference then as well. The funniest thing I have from the press conference is the fact that he was asked, "Oh, is this the starting lineup? You're gonna give this some runway moving forward?" And Steve was just like, "I have no idea." That was his quote. "I have no idea." And I just thought that perfectly summed up Golden State's issues, where I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, can we get a semblance of consistency when it comes to the starting lineup and the rotation? Because as I said yesterday, like, every good team in the league, they're good because they have a rhythm, right? They know what they're doing. Each player knows their roles, whether they're in the starting five, whether they're 6th, 7th, 8th man, whether they're not playing at all unless there's injuries and other stuff involved. Like, good teams know who they are, and the Warriors just don't know who they are. That's what it comes down to. Like, they want to be an elite defensive team. Cool, you just gave up 136 points to Portland. Okay, you want to be a high-level offensive team? How can you be when you got two guys averaging over 12.5 points and that's all, right? You want to have some kind of consistent rotation and get guys in rhythm and stuff like that. Well, how can you when you're pulling guys in and out of the starting lineup and in and out of the rotation. Like Will Richard at DMP again. What are we doing? I don't know. The vets came. Sorry, I'm just trying to flick back through the comments here. The vets came back and our defense got worse when we turned the ball over more. Kerr and the vets are the reason for most of our losses. This is the thing. So I'm not sure I totally agree with that, but I don't think there are so many issues here that everyone's to blame to a degree. Everyone's at fault except maybe Steph. Everyone else can take a part of the blame pie on this. What sucks about trading for old players like Jimmy Butler? No trade value, great player, but totally handicapped team of what we can do with moves. I disagree. The Warriors have very valuable future draft capital that I think can be used if they're willing to do so to upgrade the roster. We could trade for MPJ with JK Moody and Horford. We can grab Herb for Buddy and Pods. And I don't mind using first for Steph. Can we get... I don't think we can get Herb Jones for Buddy and Pods. Don't think that's enough. Isn't Herb on over 14, I think? I believe Herb Jones is making over $14 million this season. And from the top of my head, just jumping on the trade machine, top of my head, Pods is at 3.6 and Buddy's at 9.1, which makes it 12.7. I might be wrong, but Pods is at 3.6 and Buddy's at 9.2. 12.8. Pretty confident that Herb Jones is making more than that. 13.9. So it falls just short. And unfortunately, because you're over the first apron, you can't take back more money. So it doesn't work. Wiggs and the smaller contracts were much easier to trade. True. Trades ain't helping with crap. Depends who they are at the end of the day. I'm really interested, is there something, because Stein's spoken about the fact that there could actually be moves made here in the next 24, 36 hours simply because so obviously the trade period unofficially kicks off tomorrow with the December 15 date and the fact that free agents can now be moved. And we've got this thing which the Warriors really started last season where you can acquire a player before December 16 and still trade them again before the deadline, as we saw with Dennis Schroeder. And that's why Stein believes there's likely to be some deals made here. Is there something the Warriors can do? I doubt it because, again, Kuminga's not eligible until January 15. So we'll wait and see. Kay says, you're going to understand this is a system issue. Jimmy's $50 million a year, not to put the ball in the hoop. Get Pods off this team. Get Wiggins back, bro. Wiggins could be an option, but I think the trade that I saw the other day where it was a 3-teamer with Milwaukee where Giannis was going to the Heat and the Warriors got Wiggins back instead of him going to Milwaukee. That feels like the only way they'd get Wiggins back because I don't think the Heat are going to be selling Wiggins necessarily. They're going to be buying someone else using Wiggins' contract, like Giannis, or an upgrade a la what the Warriors did with Jimmy Butler, obviously, last season. Draymond Green yelling at Quentin Post for his shitty pass was absolutely ridiculous on that bounce pass under the hoop. Yeah, fair. I don't know what Draymond's doing, man. Again, I don't want to sound like a Draymond hater necessarily, because I'm just flat out not. But that didn't make any sense to me because I just thought the part that was just Draymond's fault, wasn't it? I think it was just Draymond's fault, and he just really ripped into QP about it. And if I was QP, I'd be like, mate, take a look at yourself in the mirror. That was not my issue. Yeah, I mean, in that scenario, you'd probably like QP to be some kind of a lob threat, maybe, because Draymond could have thrown it up to him. But yeah, anyway. Kay says, can someone explain why Pods was playing? This is again, I don't love Pods, but this is a weird game to be criticizing him because I actually thought he was one of our better players. 12.7 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 of 7, 3 of 3 on threes. I thought he was actually pretty good in this game. There's a lot of games this season where you can criticize Brandon Pajemski. This probably not the one, I wouldn't have thought. Draymond was garbage tonight. Yeah. 8 turnovers. Yeah, it's hard. 14, 8, 7, 3 steals looks like a really good stat line, but then 8 turnovers just sticks out like a sore thumb. Steve says, all glory to God, I believe these players need a new voice. They don't want to play for Kerr. Warriors will never win with Kerr, no matter who they trade for. Kerr is the problem. A lot of people believing that. Kerr always says he's going to do something and do it for one game, then change. He said he was going to give Pat more minutes, and Pat only got 7 minutes tonight after just playing 22 minutes. Steve says Kuminga is obviously not the problem. Warriors need to get Avdia. I wish, but they missed the boat on that one. Both before the draft, obviously, when they could have traded down and then potentially drafted him or Hallie, obviously, and then obviously when he became available in Washington, they probably should have tried to get him then, really. Dendick says, now Dre is going to go on that stupid podcast of his and say some BS. We got cooked by Kamara and Sharp. It wasn't Kamara, was it? It was more so Jeremy Grant. Kamara was 3 of 8 at 7 points. So not him necessarily, but Grant, 35 points, 12 of 22, 7 of 13 from three-point range. And Sharp, 35, 12 of 18, 5 of 7 from deep. And then Denny's 26, 7, and 8 for him. So those 3 guys just really, really killed us. And, the Warrior defense, I don't know. It's been better in recent games. If you look at it, what we came into this game, just double checking, came into this game 4th in defense. You look at games like this one, you think that feels like that's fake to me, because there's still games where they can get absolutely torched and they don't have the perimeter defense, which means any fast guard or big guard that can get into the paint and penetrate off the dribble, Warrior defense just collapses. And you can look at Portland and say, well, and it really frustrated me a little bit with Fitz and Kalena, and they're just them going on and on about just the ridiculousness of Portland shooting and saying, well, they're ranked 30th in the league, 32.8%. And then they come up against the Warriors and they just shoot the lights out. Like, what the hell is this about? And I understand that to a degree, but part of it is also like some of these jump shots are open. Like, they just flat out are, because the Warrior defense is collapsing. And that's just, I suppose, a PR move from Fitz and Klenner. And like, even Fitz saying at the end of the game, it's like, oh, well, this game was more about what Portland did well than it was the Warriors did poorly. And I'm like, man, like, stop. I'm really, maybe I'm just a sore loser at times, but whenever I play sport or, watch a game like this, when, my team's playing or whatever else, very, very few occasions where I will tip my hat and say, you were just the better team and I couldn't have done more to try and win that game, right? Whether it's me competing, playing Tuesday night social league basketball or any other sport or any other sport that I'm watching on a professional level, very, very few where I will say, yep, look, the Warriors played great in this game. Couldn't have done anything more. They were just beaten by a better team. Okay. And yes, we can give credit to Portland for hitting shots and playing well. That's fine. They played well. Yep, fine. But should the Warriors have won this game? Absolutely. Absolutely, they should have. The turnover issues, again, the lack of another legitimate scoring option beyond Steph, just some mistakes down the stretch. The defense was the biggest thing, because you could look at the lack of a second scoring option in this game, and Steph goes to 48. No one else has more than 16. But I would say, like, they put up 131 points. Like, that's enough to win any game. 131 points is fine. They had 7 players in double digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like Moody, Draymond, Post, Pods, Healed all had between 10 and 14. Like, they got enough scoring. They got enough offense. I think overall, big picture view, they definitely need another guy offensively. But this wasn't necessarily the game where that was the biggest issue. It was just the defense was appalling, it must be said. Chris says the scapegoat is not playing anymore, so who can we blame? Be interesting to see if Kuminga can get another opportunity at some point, given they've lost these last 2 games. I don't know. I don't really. There's just like I actually like the start. The problem is I like the starting lineup on what they went with, but then it means there's going to be a bunch of guards coming off the bench where you've got Pods, Melton, Healed, Pat Spencer. I like the fact that Trace at least played 16 minutes. I thought he was okay. And they'll be the Horford minutes when he comes back. Even like, because initially I thought the Kuminga DMP was down to, well, Gee has played well, so Gee will be in the rotation and Gee will be playing 15 to 18 minutes. I was like, okay, whatever. I suppose that's been deserved. And then Gee's played 6 minutes in each of the last 2 games. And not really had an impact, but it's hard to have an impact in 6 minutes, must be fair. So, yeah, what are we doing? Jerry says Green was a turnover machine. Yep, 8 turnovers. Again, what I will say is that it's not as if it was a huge differential. It was 18-17 in turnovers. But that's not to say, like, ideally the Warriors turn the ball over 6 less times and end up with 5 more possessions than Portland, I suppose, in that aspect. And then you'd expect them to score at least 5 points in 5 possessions kind of thing to try and win the game. So many different elements you can point to, but yeah, Draymond's 8 turnovers was, specifically one of them, and of course the defense as well. I'm going to finish it up there. I think, guys, not too much else to talk about. As I said off the top, it's hard to be too frustrated and angry in a game of from a game of basketball when we've had everything else happen in Australia and even in the US as well over the past 24, 36 hours. So very, very disappointing performance from the Warriors nonetheless. And now we've kind of got to sit and chew on it for a few days because they don't play until Wednesday, I think, against the Phoenix Suns, who are going to be difficult. They're going to be difficult. They went down in a controversial finish there at the end against the Lakers, 118-116, I think the final result there. Obviously, the Warriors were able to get 116-114. Sorry, the Warriors were able to get a win over the Suns earlier in the season at Chase. But that's going to be difficult. And then now they've obviously got back-to-back games against Phoenix, one on the road and one at home. So the Warriors 13-14 after 27 games. We'll wait and see what happens now. As I said, they've got a reasonably easy schedule over what I would classify as the next 19 games now. But this is a game against Portland. You would have certainly liked them to have win if they want to be a genuine top 6 seed in the Western Conference, which I still think they can be because the West isn't great necessarily, but more performances like this, and they're just kicking away the season and kicking away any hopes of a top 6 spot in the West, it must be said. Thank you very much to those of you that have tuned in. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciating. Follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. You can follow Golden State with Mates on TikTok and Instagram as well. Appreciate you guys. I might be back, see if Stevie Ray's around potentially for an episode in a couple of days before that matchup